Well, it appears the engine is finally revving at Tesla after sputtering out several times over the past few weeks. The famed Cybertruck, pictured here and in dormant state, which was announced back in 2019, is finally launching in Austin, Texas this afternoon. The impact on the company has investors wondering, with our next guest saying it will undoubtedly be a halo effect across the Tesla brand. It doesn't seem to be shaking up any competitors in the EV space. On Wednesday, our own executive editor, Brian Sozzi, spoke with General Motors CEO Mary Barra on the subject. Here's what she had to say.
Well, I always take every competitor extremely seriously. And so we'll watch as it evolves. But again, I think we know trucks. And when I look at the trucks, the feedback that we're getting from the fleet customers already gives me confidence in our truck portfolio.
So let's bring in Autolist editor-in-chief David Undercoffler to discuss more. David, okay, I continue to just be, have my, bottom jaw just kind of slack-jawed every time I see this thing on screen, and this Cybertruck. So what are the expectations by the end of the day today? Will people be blown away, or will this be perhaps a nothing burger if they can't get the price and the delivery correct?
I'm going to go for the third option and go right in the middle of the road. I don't think anyone's going to be blown away. I think everyone was blown away when we first saw it. It's a very striking, dramatic design. So there's no surprises there. The production version looks largely like the concept we've seen for a number of years. But I think what everyone is curious about are like the meaningful metrics, right? Like you said, price. That's going to be everything to a lot of buyers. We also don't know things like range of this vehicle. We don't know if it's dual motor, tri-motor. There was talk of a single motor originally, but that's probably not going to happen now. We don't know payload, the truck metrics, right? Payload and towing, we don't know those yet. And horsepower as well. So I think there's a lot of sort of the nitty gritty details that really sort of make this, popular. People are looking to find out today.
When it comes to what makes it popular and who is actually going to be out there buying this Cybertruck, I know you've been digging into this. What did you find?
Yeah, so we at Autolist, we run an annual survey every year, gauging consumers' interest in electric trucks. We ask them sort of a hypothetical matchup of all of the ones that automakers have talked about. So not just what you can buy today, so that would be Ford and Rivian and the Hummer truck, but also models that are expected. So that'd be models from, like Mary Barra was just talking about, the Chevy Silverado, there's a Ram version coming, an electric Toyota Tacoma. We paired all those up and said, look, car shoppers, which seems most appealing to you? We've done this for a number of years. This year, the big winner was Toyota Tacoma. Overall, if there's an electric version, and again, this is hypothetical, but an electric version of that truck had a widespread appeal. So to people who owned trucks previously, who had never owned a truck, to different sorts of age groups, that sort of was the main overall winner. That sort of kicked the Ford F-150 Lightning out of the top spot. Previous 2 years, we'd seen a lot of enthusiasm around the Ford. Now you can go buy the Ford. So I think the novelty has sort of worn off that truck. And then the Cybertruck definitely was the winner among people who had owned or currently own an EV. So EV owners are very enthusiastic about the Cybertruck. I think there's a big audience and a lot of potential there. And then also younger buyers, Gen Z, were the buyers who definitely favored the Cybertruck overall.
I mean, but it comes down to financing too. I think especially even for Gen Z, many of them, my gosh, the kind of age range continues to elude me.
Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And I was trying to be really generous to myself there. But at the end of the day here, it comes back to how much, even at different kind of consumer cohorts, they're willing to spend into an experience where you're still waiting for there to be this broader investment that's starting to take place in a charging network at the end of the day. Does it feel like there's confidence around the existing network in order to buy into an EV experience right now?
The short answer is no. We, in addition to this electric truck survey, we at Autolist also poll every year just a broader EV survey. We've done that for a number of years. And both of these surveys, year over year, it's the same three reasons that people are concerned about EVs. It's the price of them over an internal combustion version of that vehicle. It's the range that EV can travel. And then it's also, where am I going to charge it? And the charging is becoming a more critical pain point for consumers. Infrastructure is still lagging. We're seeing some investment both on the private level and then a public level in that, but it's still not solving consumers' pain points of like, look, maybe I'm on board, in theory with an electric vehicle, but if I own it, I don't know where I'm going to plug it in. I don't know where I'm going to charge it. And that's a huge concern for consumers of all ages, not just Gen Z.
David, going back to the thought that we played in the intro, the soundbite there from Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, and our colleague Brian Sazzi asked her about the Cybertruck, and she didn't really brush it off. She said that she always has her eyes and closely tracks anything that competitors are doing, but she did reiterate, to no surprise, that she's very confident in GM's lineup of EV trucks. How big of a threat do you see the Cybertruck as a threat to some of the more traditional automakers and their lineup of EV pickups?
I don't see it as a big threat in terms of outright sales, right? Like Mary Barr was very clear, and they know their trucks. It's something they've been succeeding at for decades now. Even as they're shifting to electrification, I think they're pretty confident in maintaining a pretty strong user base. So I don't think it's going to steal sales necessarily, but I do think it's going to force people's perceptions of what an electric truck can be. It's going to force automakers to evolve their interpretation of that. I mean, that's what Tesla did, famously with the Model S. Electric vehicles 15 years ago were not sexy, they weren't aspirational, they weren't luxurious, and the Model S came in and sort of shadowed all of that. And so I think you may see some perceptions shift a little bit as a result of the Cybertruck. I'm glad it's out there. It's a refreshing take on trucks, but I'm not going to go out and buy one. So I think automakers see it as potentially something that kind of, it's going to evolve kind of what consumers may expect out of their vehicle.
This is still a company that has two mystery machines that have yet to be unveiled here. And if you take a look at some of their Investor Day materials from earlier in the year, essentially it's just kind of a Casper the Friendly Ghost type of cloth over type of it. How much does this Cybertruck also set up the introduction of those vehicles, and does that make or break what that looks like in the fanfare?
That's a good question. I think this Cybertruck, it sort of sets the tone for Tesla and sort of the future of the company. I don't think, though, materially it's going to have an outsized impact on sales. I mean, it may have like a halo impact on maybe the share price a little bit, but in terms of sales, I've said it before, the bread and butter of Tesla are the Model 3 and the Model Y. And there are updates, pretty significant updates expected to each of those vehicles in the near future. So I think, they're going to look a little different. There's going to be potentially some different battery technology, potentially the range changes on those vehicles, and then the price as well. So I think those changes to those vehicles does a lot more sort of broadly and holistically for Tesla, for its sales, for its share price, kind of overall. That's where you kind of need to look. The Cybertruck is, I don't want to call it a distraction, but I think it's more sort of icing on the cake rather than kind of, what's underneath. That's the Model 3 and Model Y.
All right, David Undercoffler, always great to get your insight. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.